saving everyone and then sacrificing herself because she becomes a lot more doctor-like. And ultimately, that's her doom and her escape from her doom.
She becomes so doctor-like, she even gets her own intro to the program.
And her own TARDIS.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Then we have River Song. Now, here is a very different sort of love interest for the Doctor. She is a time traveler. They meet in totally out of order, usually backwards. And so the first time he meets her, she dies saving him. And the first time she meets him, he knows everything about her and she's just really confused.
She flies the TARDIS much better than he does, and she's definitely a bad chica.
She keeps him in line better than anyone else, and they have a glorious relationship.
Yeah, definitely. Here's two women that changed the mold of the program quite a bit because they were the first female couple. They also were basically the leader and the assistant, or the partner in crime, the Paternoster gang.
Which was essentially Sherlock Holmes.
And they also brought Strax along with them.
So these were two women who got secretly married in the Victorian age, and as you can see, one of them is not even human.
The reptilian from the dawn of time.
And they were great because they helped the Doctor through a lot of hard times, and they really showed a lot of kind of motherly attention as well as being really awesome fighters.
Definitely. And then we move into UNIT again, the United Nations Intelligence Task Force. Kate Stewart happens to be the daughter of the Brigadier, who during the 1970s was the leader of that organization. She takes over the helm. She started off as a scientific advisor, but then she moved on to being the leader.
And then we have Osgood. Now she is the quintessential Doctor Who fan. She works for UNIT, works for Kate, and is obsessed with the Doctor, wears all the paraphernalia.
Like us.
And like us. And you know, is very excited to meet him, but she also goes off to save the world on a regular basis and decides not to travel with him because she's too important to the Earth. And so both of these women also show a strength in a very different way because they work with the Doctor but don't travel with him.
Our most recent companions, Bill Potts, came in. She also kind of broke the mold as the first lesbian companion. She was street smart, kind of like Rose and Ace, and she was definitely quick-witted. And
an interesting sort of story to capture here with Bill is actually when in the Twice Upon a Time, a Christmas special, where she interacts with the first and the 12th Doctors. And we get to see a stark difference in how the role of women has changed just based on how those two men interact with her and each other. So the 12th Doctor is largely embarrassed by his first incarnation during this thing. The first Doctor goes on to, let's say, he says women are basically made of glass.
He'll give her a jolly smack bottom.
Jolly smack bottom if he hears her curse again. And, oh wow, I can tell he's really missing you because his TARDIS is a mess. And Bill, to her credit, actually, you know, tells him off, but largely isn't offended. She's actually just finds it hilarious because the perception of women has changed so far since the early 60s that it's actually not offensive, it's just ridiculous. Absolutely. For, you know, someone of modern day to interact with someone with those viewpoints.
Yasmin Khan is the current traveling companion, well, one of them. She unfortunately takes on kind of a Nissa role, where she has been sidelined quite often, as some of you may know. But her extended family she does get to visit, and she are actually part of the plot lines for some of the stories that she's in. And
we would love to categorize her as a damsel in distress or a warrior or something like that, but honestly, we haven't seen enough of her to really say anything.
Yep, she is Pakistani though, so that kind of brings in a little bit more diversity as well. Which is kind of nice. Now we're going away from companions and getting into villains.
All right, so again, Time Lady. So she started off as the Master for starting back in the 70s with the Third Doctor through all of them, was this character. And he followed a very standard formula. He would show up, usually in disguise. He would launch some overly complicated plot and usually involved with this other alien race that ends up totally betraying him at the end, and usually the doctor has to come fix it, and he sometimes even joins the doctor just so he can escape. And it's a spectacular failure. Now, Missy comes in on the scene, and she starts off much the same way. She comes in disguise multiple times, and she has an overly complicated plot involving the Cybermen, but the main difference here is that she's actually the first incarnation of the Master to ever succeed. She comes in and is actually much more powerful and successful than any of her previous male incarnations.
She's also a bit more empathetic towards her relationship with the Doctor. She also wants to be his friend through most of the series, although it's kind of an odd way of showing it. And but she does actually kind of come around to that, unbeknownst to the Doctor himself.
Yeah, so her previous incarnation was given the opportunity to essentially be imprisoned by the Doctor but travel around with him, or he could die. And he literally chose to die. He ended up escaping, obviously, because he regenerated, but that was his choice. And she's actually given the exact same choice, and she chooses to stay with the Doctor and to learn how to be good. And she is, willing to voice her emotions. She actually starts to deal with all of the thousands of people she's killed, and in the end decides to stand with the Doctor and fight with him in a losing battle because it's right.
Definitely. Moving on to our final character, I can't imagine who it would be. The Doctor herself.
Yay!
Nothing wrong with that. Of course, Jodie Whittaker is our first female Doctor. She struggles a little bit at first with her gender identity because she knows that she was a Scotsman, old Scotsman, just a few minutes ago.
In fact, someone says, "Oh, are you all right, ma'am?" And she says, "Why'd you call me ma'am?"
She has to take a little adjustment time. That's okay. She calls her companions friends now, and she gets to be a little bit more family-oriented.
So one thing we forgot to mention earlier is that in the 60s and the very beginning of the 70s, the companions were referred to as assistants, and that really is reflective of the role they played. And then they became companions because they really just travel with him. But ultimately, they started to grow into more of a friendship, and she's the first one who actually calls them friends.
Yes, definitely. She's less bombastic than her predecessors, especially this one.
Unfortunately, she has not been given the epic speeches of the previous Doctors, nor has she been given many plot lines that make sense.
Wait, they don't make sense.
But she, to her credit, the actress has done a phenomenal job, and she does show a lot of great strength, even though it's less in-your-face, bulldoze over you type of strength.
And to be fair, she's only had one series, so let's give her the benefit of the doubt and hope that next series will be even more powerful and amazing.
And maybe we'll see more of Yas, too.
Yes, exactly. Definitely. Well, now, we had one young individual ask when are we going to be able to ask questions? Well, now is your time. So if you'd like to ask a question, please feel free to raise your hand, and we'll try and answer it to the best of your ability.
My question was, how did you get all this information?
The question was, how did we get all this information?